Mitakiepi, my very, very beloved relatives, I want to extend to each and every one of you a very heartfelt, loving handshake and hug. Suresh, it's good to see you here. How are they doing at the Coast Guard?
I was not at the Coast Guard, I was at the
Women's March. Perfect. You know, right as we are here, everywhere on Mother Earth, the human families are rising as prophesied by the visionaries, by those poets, by those who saw our unlimited potentiality as human beings. Black elk, Viracocha, sweet medicine, Chief Dan George, many, many, many saw that each of us is a sovereignty, ancient, imperishable, and everlasting. And so today, just here in Vancouver, we have a march that's just finished for homelessness. And to think in any nation such as this, with people receiving wages even here in this city, more than any person could really spend, we're here with relatives who are starving. We have schools that are not providing our children with what they need to get a good education. Very basic human rights of all members of the human family. And I want to just mention this, so important that Chief Reuben George was here. I'm so thankful that I'm standing right here on one of the only unsurrendered, unceded parts of Mother Earth that has never, ever been surrendered. The only reason why it was taken was first through devastating disease that wiped out about 95% of the relatives here. When there was some resistance up to the north, those relatives were hung. The children were taken away from their parents and sent to residential schools, and then through the force, backed by arms, this land was unjustly taken. At the same time, we saw the graciousness of the people here and the great love of my nephew here to come and sing and share. And you know, when Vancouver was burning, it was burning back in the 1800s, almost burned down. The first to come across those waters, the first to come out with what they had to share was the Squamish, the Tsleil-Waututh, and other Salish nations. So for this, I want to give thanksgiving to all those that have gone before us, that are here now and will come after us, of these nations. So thank you. What I want to share now came from a historic meeting we had between Christmas and New Year's 1982. And I want to share it with an understanding, I believe, that's the core of all our indigenous teachings. And that is this: that the stage we're moving into right now, very rapidly, the consciousness we're beginning to arrive to, is the oneness of the human family, the prior oneness and unity of the human family. That the hurt of one is a hurt of all, and the honor of one is the honor of all. And if once we recognize the oneness of the human family, with it comes the elimination of every form of prejudice. Anything that has us feeling better than we are to another human being. And so in 1982, we called a meeting of elders from across Canada. Some came to the United States. And to ask them, what can we do? What can we do to begin a journey, as our prophecies told us, towards that time when a new world, literally, would unfold? And we look to these times of 2012 at that time. I was in Bolivia in 1970 and 71 for the first time I really got involved with the reunion of the Condor and Eagle, with the Mayan prophecies. Clear back then, and before that, over 500 years ago, they foresaw that this time would come when the human family would come together and would arise without question and rebuild this disintegrating system we're living in. And I want to say this, that with all respect to all these institutions, all these nation states around the world we had a chance to interact with down in Rio +20, that what I hear are the death cries of an old system that's outworn, that it no longer serves our needs as human beings. At the same time, Mitakiyepi, I hear the birth cries of a new, a rising. That this is the springtime that has been promised by all the great visionaries of the human family. Now, we talk about that name, Occupy. I think really, if we look at history clear back to the mists of time, we've all gone through, every one of us here, our relatives have gone through colonization. So part of this is decolonizing everything. Clear back from the very beginning. To really come into this relationship, which one of the elders always told me, he said, you must not rest until you make everybody you know, a mother, a father, aunt, or uncle, a niece, a nephew, a grandfather, a grandmother, a grandson or a granddaughter, a brother or sister. And if you can do that, you'll know exactly how to treat them. So that's why, again, I want to say, Mitakiyepi, my relatives, those who have gone before us, those that are here, and those who come after us, I'm very thankful to be here. I very briefly want to share with you these 16 guiding principles that emerged out of a consultation that began between Christmas and New Year's 1982. We called together 40 elders who spoke different languages, came from different tribes and nations, and we asked them, what can we do? What can we do? We seem to be going further and further and further into the depths of despair and hopelessness and abuse. What can we do? In essence, when we distilled what they had to say, it was very simple. In fact, my father used to always tell me, he said, son, he said, if something's true, everybody should be able to understand it. He said, so when they get these great big words in front of you, you better look twice. Of course, all our treaties were written like that. And really simply what the elders said was this, when we distilled what they told us was this. They said this world we live in, this incredible changing world we live in, is organized according to certain natural laws. Natural laws. They said the physical laws are easy to understand. If you got up on top of this tree and you jumped out in your head, you'd get a headache. Most of us. If you took a glass full of arsenic and you drank it, you'd get one heck of a stomachache. If I took off running and ran into some piece of concrete, I'd get another headache. There's certain physical laws that govern this universe, but they said just as real, and in fact underlying this physical reality are also spiritual laws, natural laws that govern how we grow as human beings and how we grow and develop as communities, as nations, and as a human family. And so we began a consultation process between Christmas and New Year's in 1982. We met, and the elders gave us 4 of these principles. 1987, we brought 100 elders together, and we worked again. We went to 7. They wanted to make sure we understood. And at that second meeting, I remember so clearly, give you a little idea of the dialogue I'm sure that you shared here in Occupy. Some people stood up and said, we have to start from the top. They're the ones that have the power. Others said, no, 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 no. You'll never change them, they're too sick. Others said, no, we've got to start in the grassroots. And finally, one elder stood up and he said, where in the world did you learn to think either or? You've got to have a top-down, bottom-up approach. A top-down, bottom-up approach. The other dimension that we're going back and forth with is because of the tremendous alcoholism and drug abuse we're experiencing in our communities. People were saying, well, listen, I can go and teach children, and if I want to go home and do a few lines of Coke and this and that and so forth and so on. You know, there doesn't have to be any kind of personal values that I have to be a good member of the community. And what the elders said to us, they said, you know, the moral dimension of development is inescapable. But that doesn't mean going in and trying to define for people, but it means that you cannot build any movement on dishonesty. We can see it in the mainstream, where it's taken us. We can't build it on backbiting and gossip. We can't build it on not being faithful, supportive brothers and sisters of one another. We came to that agreement. And finally, in 1993 and 94, we had 2 meetings of 500 relatives each meeting from all over, all members of the human family, large numbers of indigenous people, but other members of the human family. And we came up and completed what we call 16 principles for building a sustainable and harmonious world. That's from the Kunas, by the way. The Kunas doesn't talk about sustainable development. They talk about harmonious development. I really like the way they have that. So if you would, and I'm going to try this. You know, I've always seen this thing happen where you kind of do this back and forth deal. Suresh, I know you're really good at it. I've seen you there. But I just want, they're very brief. They're very brief, but and simple, but they're very profound. So we began with this preamble. We speak as one.
We speak as one.
Guided by the sacred teaching and spiritual directions of the 4 directions that uplift, guide, protect, warn, inspire, and challenge the entire human family to live in ways that sustain and enhance human life and the life of all who dwell in Mother Earth. And hereby dedicate our lives and energies and the web of relationships that make up our world and the way we live with Mother Earth. So, these now were then broken into 4 parts based on this little piece right here. Starting from within. Working in a circle. In a sacred manner. We heal ourselves. Our relationships. And the world. So starting from within, the first is human beings can transform their worlds.
Human beings can transform their worlds.
Mitakiapi. That's all right. My relatives, that's good. Mitakiapi. You don't have to do this one. I just want to say, just to highlight that one. You know, if we don't believe with all our heart and soul that we, in fact, can change this sickness that's before us, this materialism that's intruded in every part of our life, then we might as well give up. But I believe I'm in a circle of people here, and there's many everywhere on Mother Earth that don't believe that. They believe we can do this change. Second, development comes from within. So this part you don't have to repeat, but I'll just add this. The process of human and community development unfolds from each person, relationship, family, organization, community, or nation. And that's why we give respect to every human being. We give respect to each circle and know that as good allies, we can support them and that they have within them, each one of us, is a sovereignty, ancient and perishable and everlasting. Remember when the elders said to me, he said, "Do you think you're a puny form? Well, within you is enfolded the universe." While within you is enfolded the universe, we have it. We have this, each of us. And together, it's multiplied beyond any mathematical computation. No vision, no development.
No vision, no development.
So, we have to have a vision. Without a vision, the people perish. This has been restated through spiritual teachings, or teachings, we don't have to call them spiritual, teachings that guide us. There's an old Dakota saying, it says, when the young people stop singing the old songs, and there are no more dreams and visions of greatness, there is no more power. So as your vision is, so shall your power be. So as your faith is, so shall your success be. So part of this whole thing, when we talk in talking circles, is about coming together and visualizing the world that we are co-creating together. Fourth, healing is a necessary part of development.
Healing is a necessary part of development.
So this means closing up old wounds, healing broken trusts. But this is part of it, making ourselves whole. Now, working in a circle. Interconnectedness.
Interconnectedness.
Everything is connected to everything else.
Everything is connected to everything else.
Whatever we do to one part, we do all the rest.
Whatever we do to one part, we do all the rest.
So that's understanding how this whole thing, everything is interconnected. All is interconnected. No unity, no development.
No unity, no development.
Every movement that I've seen, and this goes back to hearing Stokke Carmichael. And I remember Stokke Carmichael, one of the things he said I really loved, he says, until our value system is superior to that which oppresses us, we will never overcome the oppressor.
Yeah.
That's Stokke. So even some of those old guys back there had a few good words. No participation, no development.
No participation, no development.
And I'll just read this part, and again, we'll hand these out so you don't have to come back on it. Participation is the active engagement of the minds, hearts, and energy of the people in the process of their own healing and development. So everybody needs to be part of the process. We all deserve that as the human beings we are. Justice. 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 And I want to just read this part out. You don't have to repeat it. Every human being, regardless of gender, sexual orientation, race, age, culture, religion, etc., must be accorded equal opportunity to participate in the process of healing and development and to receive a fair share of the benefit. We're just about there. We'll get the talking circles going. In a sacred manner. Now, we don't go and try to define whose higher power is what. That's for each person. It may be a loved one is yours. But spirit. Human beings are both material and spiritual in nature. We're saying we have both of these dimensions. We have that part that is of this physical world, we have that part in our dreams. Because I asked one time an elder, I said, how do we know we have a soul? How do we know we have the spiritual part of us? He said, not every night. But he says, many ways to know this. He said, but think about this. Think about this. At night, we go to sleep. We die from this world, literally. They put all these measurements and so forth, and they know brain activity until it hits a certain part of REM sleep, goes to nothing. And then all of a sudden, at the very bottom of sleep, when dreams occur, there's more brain activity at that time than there is when we're fully awake. So the elder said, and just think at that time, with no eyes, you see each other without eyes. You travel a place without legs. You hear things without ears. You dream things tonight that happened tomorrow, happened 10 years ago. He said, and that's not me. That's that part of us that goes beyond the murmur of syllables and sounds. Okay, The hurt of one is the hurt of all, and the honor of one is the honor of all.
The hurt of one is the hurt of all. The honor of one is the honor of all.
I don't think I have to say much more about that one. That we all of us, love our children. We all of us love those beloved ones in our Mother Earth, unless we're really sick. And I feel sorry for those that have gotten so sick, they can't see they're destroying the very foundation of not only their lives, but their children's lives and their grandchildren. Isn't that a sickness? A great sickness. Finally, authentic development is culturally based. That is, we have to respect the cultures of each people. We have different cultures. We have to include that in the development process and understand that that operates. And that's why respecting the ways, each of us have a little bit different ways of doing things, and learning about those. Finally, we heal and develop ourselves in a relationship to the world, learning. Human beings are learning beings. And we continue learning from the time we're born until the time we go to the next world. So learning has to be at the core of any powerful movement. Learning, opening our minds up, letting go of all preconceived ideas, letting go of all titles, letting go of anything that keeps us from fully understanding and embracing all the new changes that are before us. Not being attached to anything that'll hold us back from finding that path that will take us to that future we're all praying and wishing for. Last two. Move to the positive.
Move to the positive.
Now, I'm going to read this one little part we have to repeat through, but I think these last two, I think, are the focus. Solving the critical problems in our lives and communities